Guys, welcome to this video. And in this video we are going to look about the opaque return type. The opaque return type is one of the feature which was recently released by Apple in Shift 5.1. And in this video we are going to learn what is opaque return type and how we are using and how we have to declare it and how the implementation is working and what is the use of the opaque return type and all we are going to see in this video. So before going to start the session, I just want you to know what is opaque return type. The opaque return type, the name itself intimates it's going to return something. So whenever we call some function, the function will tells what the return type it is, but which is opposite for the opaque return type. So the caller doesn't know what the kind of object that going to return back. So this is the one of the very one line explanation for the opaque return type. So without revealing the concrete type value to the client, it will work. So this is the basic terms of opaque return type and its associated type. So first let me do a declaration for the opaque return type. So let me do a protocol. So I'm just going to create a protocol for the mobile OS. So as you know, like there are two OS, one is iOS and another one is Android. For example, let's take the iOS version is 10 and Android version is 7.3. And Lollipop, KitKat, whatever it is. So iOS version is going to take the things in an integer, and Android version is going to take an object in a string. Let's take Jelly Bean, Lollipop, KitKat, whatever it is. For that I'm going to create an protocol. So let me name the protocol name as mobile OS, and let associated types version, and I'm going to create an version for, and it's going to be a get type. In protocol we always used to specify whether it is a get type or a read only type or something like that. In the init function I'm just going to init the version. Yes, that's it. I've just created an mobile OS and created a version called associated type. So this associated type only we are just going to play around. Next thing, we are just going to implement two OS. One is for Android and another one is for iOS. So let me do that also. So for that I'm just going to create a structure. So in the structure I'm going to name it as an iOS mobile, and it's of going to type mobile OS, and I'm just going to get this version into this structure. So I'm just inheriting that particular version, and it is must we have to give the version to the protocol. So you see it says like it's must to give the version for it. So for that I'm just going to create the version of type version, and it's of type float, sorry, int. Same things goes for Android. It's going to get the value of float. Yes, Android mobile, iOS mobile. Yes, so in the implementation has been done. So consider I'm going to create a function. That function is going to utilize this iOS and Android mobile. Let's see what's going to happen. So function caller. So and it's going to return something. That something is mobile OS. If I return iOS mobile 10.10, let's see what's happening. Okay, so now the compiler says like the mobile OS can be used as a generic constraint because it has a self or associated self constraint in it. It's clearly we can be able to see is like this mobile OS has an associated type version. So our basic principle as to here is like the caller does not leak, does not should not leak what kind of return type it's going to return. So if we use like this means it says like we should not return this particular mobile OS to the caller. So for that what we are going to do is like instead of mobile OS we are just going to say like iOS mobile. This time it works, but whenever we used to call this function at that time as a caller we able to know like this going to return iOS mobile objects to the caller. So actually this is also a wrong method. I mean it's actually procedure is right, but what we determined as an output is wrong. So let me do the other step. Instead of doing the same function, I'm just going to return this function as an another function, and here I'm just going to use the mobile OS, and I'm just going to use this before sum. Okay, so when I kept the keyword sum, this intimates the compiler that something is going to return regarding the mobile OS. This time the compiler issue won't be occur. So when we used to call this function, let's say let me call this function caller. So it says like it's going to return mobile OS. So I'm just going to tell you the difference between the caller 2. So this caller 2, you see it's we are just able to know like this caller function is going to return an iOS mobile. So this is the use case between difference between these two. It will this without associated function it will reveals what kind of return type it's going to return. With associated type it does not reveal what is the return type. So that's a major difference between these two. And also one more thing which you have to understand is like this particular compiler issue has been resolved by the generic type also. But in the generic type we have to specify what kind it is. So that there also our destination is failing. So for that purpose only we are ignoring the generic calling. So let me stop this, and let me tell you the another function. So consider if there is a mobile OS means we can return multiple OS version. For example, let's say like I'm going to get an even number. So for a even number I'm just taking the random. So if is even, yeah, I'm just going to return this. In case if the value is not even means I'm just going to return Android OS, Android mobile version, and it's of type float 010 point. Let me take it as a string because that's a difference between these iOS and Android. Cat. Okay. So let's see like I have made two return types for this function, but the very important thing which you have to understand is like this won't be make the compiler to understand what kind of return type it is. It says like function declares an opaque return type but return the statement in its body to have matching the underlying types. So in this function we cannot for opaque return types we cannot return multiple returns in the same function, because our compiler before compiling it knows like what's to return, but in this situation it doesn't know what's to return. So that's a thing which we have to understand. Before proceeding this caller function, our compiler will tells to the projects like it's going to return one specific version. It doesn't know what is going to do in the runtime. Before itself it will be gets a value and store it in it. So this has to be thing we have to make sure you should not return some multiple kind of return types in the associated types. Then okay, so then I'm just going to do another functions to you. So this is an example which you can see like calling with multiple operation. Okay, so this is an example for using a generic type. So in this you can able to see like it's going to get an return type in a generic of type arrays, and it's going to return an lazy sequence of array list. What it is going to do is like it will get the array from the input, and it will drop the last, and also it will drop the first, and it will give the lazy option to the map, and it will map the entire thing with a multiple of the things. So this function is one of the heaviest function while comparing to the compiler. First it will get the array and drop the array and do the certain things and do whatever likes, and after that only it will returns the value. So in this function, if in consider if we call this function means self dot calling method. So you see the return types, it tells the users like it tells the callers like it's going to return an lazy map sequence of array. So for that purpose only we are just going to do something in it. So let me take 1 comma 2 comma 3. So without knowing the what is the return type, okay, okay, let me do it like this. Okay. Okay, so as you know, like this particular function will makes the caller to know what kind of return type it is. Now I'm just going to do an associated type return type in it, and now let's check what how the caller is getting able to know. For that I'm just copying the same function and doing the things. This time I'm just going to enter back, and instead of returning a lazy sequence I'm just going to delete and use keyword called sum and use keyword called sequence. So this time I'm just calling a same function self dot caller operation with opaque, and this time you see it's like the caller doesn't know what it's going to return. So this is the basic difference between calling with associated type and without associated type. As we discussed in the earlier stage itself, in the associated type, without revealing the concrete type of the values to the client, that's a basic uh, uh, instance which associated types follow. So by this way you can work around with the caller operation, and we can do, and you can always have an queries like when we have to use this. So when creating an frameworks and all, our associated property will be under the framework. At that time we just going to return what it's we don't know what kind of data type is going to return. At that time and all we can use this associated types, and we can work around it. It is very one of the important feature which was introduced by Apple. And if you have any queries or comments, please comment in this video, and let's meet in another video. And thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you.